Hello, my fellow Bible study group. It's so good to have you with us today. And I have a very special guest today. Victoria Rester is with us, and she is going to talk with me about some rebuilding that was done in her own life and how important it was for her. And so this is going to be my guest for this week. And I'm so tickled to have her. I know that this is probably a little out of her comfort zone because it would be for me. And y'all know I like to talk all the time. I'm sure Tracy Wiggum is saying, yes, you do, Sister Sarah. But anyway, it's good to be with you tonight. We're recording on Sunday afternoon after church, and I have some questions for Victoria as she has been on this journey for a while now. And I thought that it was such an awesome story of what I've heard about her because truly, I think Satan wanted to destroy her life. I think she would agree with that. And she was able to rebuild. And if you look at this cute little guy here on our picture, this is probably the main reason why she decided to rebuild her life. So Victoria, we've been going on this 46-day journey, and so many of us have different reasons we need to rebuild. We need to rebuild sometimes because of finances. We need to rebuild because of our health. Sometimes we have to rebuild relationships that got destroyed in our lives. But for you, you have your own story. Mm-hmm. And I thought that it would be so encouraging for others to hear about you. It wasn't a physical building that got torn down for you, but from what I've gathered, it was your life was headed in the wrong direction for many reasons, and I'm going to let you share that part. Mm-hmm. But you had to have your own rebuilding done, and you have a testimony, and so I want you to share that with us tonight. The first thing that I have here is I just kind of want you to tell everyone who you are and how that you found yourself in a place that you needed to rebuild. So I'm going to just turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm a little nervous.
Don't be nervous. I'm nervous
too. We're going to get through it like we do everything else.
That's right.
I'm Victoria Rester. I did go through a bad divorce and it turned me to drugs. Right before we split up, I began to spend a lot of money on drugs. Just wanted some kind of comfort there. And then it went from one thing to another. So I started just hanging out with the wrong people. And I know that a lot of people can say that whenever they first start something like this. But I did, and I got tangled up in a mess.
But let me ask you something, Victoria. Do you think that perhaps the reason why you gravitated to those people is because they too were looking for something too? I mean,
I believe so. I do. A lot of people won't ever come public with their struggles,
right,
and their addictions. But I feel like I need to because I feel like I can help somebody else.
Awesome.
And I feel like my testimony is one to share with the world. I talk to people all the time about it. I mean, I'm just an open book here. I'm so proud of where I come from through my struggles. I'm proud of where I am now. Proud of what I have. But yes, it was a long road, but we got to where we are today. So
during that time that you found yourself lost mm-hmm. in the getting away from, you said you had a lot of pain. I'm assuming that there was pain from several different reasons. And what did that, because there is that building that the Lord talks about in the scriptures that has to be torn down. And so let's think of drugs as that other building. Mm-hmm. Buildings provide security, comfort, a place to hide. So in that, thinking of your drugs as a building, mm-hmm. what do you think that provided for you that you were missing out on and that you were looking for? How did that help you cope?
The structure, I'll say, was just kind of comforting to me. It's different for everybody, but for me, I was just comfortable there. Whenever I would mellow out on the drugs, it would just make me feel comfortable. I would feel like nothing could touch me. I was unstoppable. I just didn't care about anything. At the time, I had nothing to care about anyways, but, I didn't care about much at the time. But yeah, it tore me down a lot. It made me feel comfortable, but in the end, it did tear me down. Like you would think a building would just fall down. That's what I did at one point in time.
Right.
So
So, and a lot of people are building these structures, and even in our Bible study, it talks about how that people, they use things that God didn't want in their lives to build other structures, and so I think that drugs perhaps was that other structure for you. And God says, okay, Victoria, I want this to come down. And you let him do that, right?
yes, yes.
So what brought you to the point where you felt like, I've got to let this go? I've got to get out of it. What brought you to realize you were in the wrong house?
I did it for a little while, just thought that it was fine, no big deal, nobody would know. But then there was this point where I knew something wasn't right. So I ended up checking on myself, found out I was pregnant. I was 5 weeks pregnant. I had did drugs the night before I found out that I was pregnant, but I was 5 weeks pregnant whenever I found out. Had my first ultrasound and I quit everything cold turkey. There was no going back. I knew that I had a reason now, something that I needed to live for, and I needed to live the right way for. And I knew that God was going to help me along the way. He was going to help me through everything. So that was my purpose, and that still is my purpose, to stay completely sober. I don't have the urge anymore like I used to. Whenever I first came off of them, I was very, very sick my whole pregnancy. And that was from the pregnancy plus the withdrawals and, stress on me about my pregnancy and all that. So I didn't get to enjoy my pregnancy like most people do. It was a rough one for sure. But that was my point to say I have to get clean. I have to do this. I have somebody that's going to be looking up to me now. I have somebody to live for. It just changed me completely. A 360 to say the least.
So, at what part of this whole process did you decide to turn back to the Lord and to get Him to help you through it?
I knew whenever I found out I was pregnant that was God telling me, I need you here on earth. There's some reason. I still don't know my reasoning. Of course, a lot of people don't. We don't really know our reason, but I know that God needed me here, and He wants me here. So He gave me the baby to tell me, hey, I need you to stick around for me. That was just my way of knowing that it was God, because from what I went through, what I was doing, there's no other explanation of how a pregnancy can survive through all of that if it ain't God.
Right.
So
that felt like that was a miracle in and of itself.
Yes.
So one of our scriptures this week in our Bible study has come from Psalms 147, and it talks about how that God is going to rebuild His city. And He's going to rebuild Jerusalem. And that excites me because I've always wanted to go to the real Jerusalem. But there's even a greater Jerusalem coming. But it talks about how that He gathers up the outcast. And at that point in your life when your building had crumbled, things were all messed up, did you ever feel like an outcast? And what does it make you feel like to know that God wanted you, even though you had made a mess out of things?
Well, I've always said I was the black sheep of the family. I've always been the different one out of my whole family. But I did feel like an outcast because I got enjoyment out of something that other people would not. I got pleasure, and I just felt comfortable doing these things that I know other people would not. So I knew I was an outcast. But like I said, if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't be here right now.
But isn't it great that He is willing, even when we make a mess of things, and all of us do. It may not be drugs for everybody. It could be many different things. that God still wants us, and
He never turns his back on us.
No, he still wants us here. Nehemiah talks about how that there are people who work and build and protect, and now that you have found yourself, you say, I quit cold turkey. I have a reason to live. I have a reason to rebuild. So what are you doing now to make sure that you never go back, or that you don't allow the enemy to overtake you again now that you've started on your journey?
I will tell you, I do have times whenever I get overly stressed or I feel down about something. I still have this temptation that makes me want to, do something, but I cannot. I cannot do anything that is not safe for me and my child and our well-being. I have to live on a sober, happy life for him. He's looking up to me. If he sees his mother drugged out, passed out somewhere, he's going to think it's okay to do that. And it's not. I want him to see me in church,
Right.
living for the Lord. I want him to see me rebuilding the best that I can to be the best person that I can and follow God's plan for my life. And I want him to see that so that he knows that he can do that one day.
And Nehemiah talks about how that when he was building back the temple for God in a much more physical aspect, but he had someone by him watching all the time. So in your own life, is there someone that you kind of look up to and kind of your mentor, or somebody maybe accountable that helps you through this process? Do you have someone to look to, someone you lean on?
I really just, I look at a lot of people that way, but my main thing is I have to do this because I know that God wants me to.
So he's the one watching
He's
for
really
you.
the one.
He's the
Yes.
watchman in the tower
Yes.
for you.
He really is. I don't seem like a very spiritual person, but deep down I am. I'm very spiritual. I just don't show it a lot physically to people, but
But you're listening,
yes,
and he's talking.
Exactly.
Awesome. If God said to you, Victoria, I want you to be the trumpet sounder for someone. I want you to alarm others of danger, because you know the dangers that are out there. If you could say something to someone right now that's struggling, and maybe you can say, I can tell they're going down a path. I can tell that there's an enemy encroaching in on them. What would you say to them? What words of warning would you give to these people out here that are looking for something so desperately and need a building? They need a structure. They need something to feel safe in. What kind of words of warning and wisdom would you give to them?
To keep it simple, I would say find your purpose. We all have a purpose in life. You may not know what it is, like I said earlier, but you do have a purpose in life. You just have to find that purpose, stick with it, get your life together, change things around to where you can rebuild yourself, find that purpose, and you just have to do it. I mean, you just have to do it for the Lord. If there's any other reason that I could find to say that I would be rebuilding for other than my son and God himself, I just don't know what it could be.
Right.
I just feel like that's my purpose in life, is to be a mentor for my child and other people. And I feel like speaking on things, telling my story, that's my way of doing it. And I just enjoy it. I do, I really do.
Well, I've had these few questions that I wanted to ask you, but I want to give you an opportunity now to say what is on your heart to someone. Just impromptu, without a question. What do you want to say to someone tonight?
It's not worth it. People may think now it's all fun and games, but it's not worth it at all. It's not worth it. It's not worth losing everything that you've built with your family. Or, you may like me be a single mother with a child, but it's not worth them seeing you that way, or losing everything that you've built so far with you. If you do have a family, it's not worth losing everything just to get a high from something like that. It's not at all. I lost everything that I ever wanted except for my child. Now I have him, but at the time, I lost everything that I had ever wanted at that time and was down to nothing. I had a car, and that was the only thing that I had, the only thing I have left. I lost everything else, and it just wasn't worth it. Now that I look back, of course, I wouldn't have my baby and I wouldn't have the things that I have now if I had stuck around to where I was. So I thank God every day for giving me this struggle that I went through and putting me on this path that I went through, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have what I have now. But I still, at the time, had things that I loved and stuff that I wanted for a long time, like with my little family that I had. It just wasn't worth getting a high off of some type of
Well,
drug.
and even though your life basically turned into ashes,
Mm-hmm.
God still brings joy and beauty out of
Mm-hmm.
ashes. And I think that's would be what I would have to say to you is, yeah, you may have ashes that you wished were still buildings,
Mm-hmm.
but out of those ashes, God can bring something very beautiful.
Exactly, and He did. He did that for me, and that's why I'm so thankful for Him and everything that He does for me, because He has really blessed me.
Absolutely.
And you just have to get to that point where you have to look around and realize what you do have.
Awesome.
And know that God has blessed you. Absolutely. You're special because God has chosen you to bless you with these perfect things that He blesses us with.
Well, I think you have an amazing story, and I am very honored that you would share it with me in this setting and then allow me to share it with other people. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and if anybody has any questions or anybody wants to talk to me about it or hear more of my story,
absolutely,
they can reach out to me. Definitely.
Yes, Victoria Rister, and I'll put if I know how to do it, I'll try to put your name there, so we'll link you in on it when I post it. And if it's okay with you, now I've been putting this on my online Bible study, which I'm going to do. But if it's okay with you, I'd love to share it on my social media.
No problem at all. I would love for you to.
Well, we will do that.
I want to get my story out there in hopes of helping somebody else.
Well, that is awesome, because you can, and there are a lot of people that will find themselves in very similar situations, and where some others may not be able to reach them, you may have that special touch that God has given you through your ashes, that you can actually bring something very beautiful to somebody else's life. Yeah. Well, thank you, Victoria.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I am so tickled that you were with me. Thank you so much.
I was so excited.
I know. And see, you're not even nervous now, right?
Mm-mm.
See, I told you.
Love it.
Love you too.